Her laughter hit me before the sound of the door did. That careless, floating kind of laughter. The kind you only make when you've forgotten someone's waiting up for you. I stood there, halfway down the hallway, holding a folded note in one hand and my wedding ring in the other. The clock on the wall ticked louder than her heels. I'd already turned off every light except the one in the kitchen, just enough to see her shadow dance on the floor. She walked in humming, kicked her shoes off, and called out, "You won't believe how fun tonight was." I didn't answer. The refrigerator buzzed. The hallway smelled faintly like her perfume and wine. Then she finally noticed. The silence wasn't accidental. "Everett," she called again, her voice smaller now. Her purse slipped from her hand, hitting the tile with a dull thud. She saw the kitchen first, empty. The kids' drawings were gone from the fridge door, replaced by a single envelope taped right in the middle. Her steps slowed when she realized whose handwriting it was. She peeled the tape off carefully, like she was afraid it would burn her fingers. I could see her reading it through the crack in the door, the note I'd rewritten a dozen times before folding it in half. It only said, "You looked happiest when you thought I wasn't watching. The kids and I won't bother you anymore." I heard the air leave her chest, a soft, startled sound, almost like she'd been punched. She turned, scanning the room as if I might be hiding behind the curtains. But I wasn't there. She hadn't noticed that the family car was gone, or that our bedroom drawers were half empty. She hadn't noticed anything, really, not the missing toothbrushes, not the echo of the space where our daughter's bed used to be. She just stood there, clutching that piece of paper like it could still fix something. The irony? I wasn't even angry anymore. I was hollow, like the part of me that cared had packed itself into those suitcases too. I watched from the driveway, hidden behind the steering wheel. The porch light framed her in the doorway, barefoot, hair a mess, mascara smudged from the tears she hadn't admitted to yet. She looked lost. I should have felt satisfaction. I didn't. Just exhaustion, and a strange calm I hadn't felt in years. Because this wasn't revenge. Not yet. This was just her first night alone. And by the time she realized what I'd taken besides the kids, it would already be too late. Lorraine called me 17 times that night, and not once did I answer. But someone else did. Someone she never expected. I didn't plan to involve him. I really didn't. I wanted to keep this whole mess between us, shield our daughter from the fallout, and maybe hold on to a shred of dignity while I burned the remains of our life together. But that was before I saw the second phone number in her call log. I had already deleted my side of the shared Apple ID when I left. Wiped the iPad. Unlinked the Mac. But I kept the burner, the one I'd quietly used to mirror her iCloud from the shadows. It felt dirty at first, spying. But then again, so was everything she did behind my back. After we left, Marnie and I checked into an old roadside motel about 30 minutes out of town. It wasn't glamorous, not even close. The wallpaper peeled in the corners, and the vending machine took my dollar and never gave it back. But it had working locks, warm water, and a small bed that smelled like bleach and not cologne. That was good enough. Marnie fell asleep, wrapped around Mr. Flop before her head hit the pillow. I watched her tiny chest rise and fall, and wondered how many more lies she would have had to endure if I'd stayed one more day. Lorraine had already missed her last 2 school events. Claimed she was overloaded at work. And then later I saw the timestamp location data. She was at a rooftop wine bar with him. Laughing. Always laughing. I was still sitting by the window when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I knew it was her. The 3rd time she'd called. But I wasn't going to pick up. Not yet. Instead, I forwarded the call to the one person Lorraine forgot she was cheating on too. Her father. Yeah, that's when things really got interesting. See, Howard, her dad, was the kind of man who wore button-ups on Sundays even if no one was coming over. Military background. Everything in his life had a label and a place. And Lorraine? She was his little angel. The golden daughter. The perfect wife. The married woman who had, as far as he knew, a loving husband and a family-first lifestyle. I made sure he saw the screenshots. Before I left, I dropped a plain manila envelope in his mailbox. No note. Just photos. Messages. The one where she said, "He never touches me like you do." The one where she begged Hank to book another night at that place with the balcony. The one where she sent a selfie in my hoodie. The hoodie I thought she'd kept because it reminded her of me. Howard called me 3 hours after she read my letter. I didn't answer that call either. He left a voicemail, though. He didn't sound angry. He sounded devastated. That's when I realized something. I wasn't the only one Lorraine had betrayed. Her mom had watched Marnie every Tuesday night, so she could stay late at work. Her sister had helped her plan our anniversary trip, which she canceled last minute, claiming she got the flu. But she wasn't sick. She was out of town with him. With Hank. It wasn't just infidelity. It was identity theft. She'd become a completely different person, and none of us had noticed because we were too busy believing in the mask she wore so perfectly. Back in the motel, I finally picked up on the 18th call. But I didn't say anything. I let her cry. I let her beg. I listened as she gasped for air and said she was scared and confused and didn't mean for things to go this far. Then I hung up. No words. No forgiveness. And no location clues. Because this wasn't about yelling anymore. It wasn't even about justice. It was about erasure. She'd erased our marriage the day she let someone else unzip her dress. Now it was my turn. And I was just getting started. I wasn't planning to involve him. Not really. I thought maybe I'd just cut my losses and let her rot alone in that silent house filled with her lies and borrowed wine glasses. But fate has this cruel way of adding gasoline to a fire you swore you wouldn't relight. It started 2 days after I left. We were staying at a small Airbnb a few towns over. It was one of those homes where everything is IKEA, down to the curtains and teaspoons. The hosts weren't home, just a lockbox and a handwritten note that said, "Make yourself comfortable. Reset button, right?" Reset button. I almost laughed. Marnie was watching cartoons, curled up in a bean bag that made a weird squeaky noise every time she moved. I was trying to eat dry cereal straight from the box and not think about how Lorraine was probably texting him while pretending to search for us. Then I got a message. An anonymous number. No words, just a photo. A photo of Lorraine and Hank. They weren't at a restaurant. Or a hotel. Or anywhere romantic. They were in the parking lot of her office. Broad daylight. She was crying. He was yelling. And she wasn't alone. A coworker was standing nearby, holding a phone up, probably filming. You could almost smell the scandal about to go viral. I didn't send him there. Which meant he did. Howard. Her father. I forgot how ruthless that man could be when he felt embarrassed. And my little manila envelope had embarrassed him deeply. He must have tracked Hank down himself. Or maybe he confronted Lorraine and she tried to lie to him again. And he called the man directly. However it happened, it worked. The next morning, Lorraine's LinkedIn was wiped clean. Former director of regional client accounts, gone. No posts. No job. Just a bland gray circle where her smiling headshot used to be. I didn't even have to lift a finger. And yet, somehow, it didn't feel like justice. Not yet. Because she still had her excuses. Her side of the story. Her version of the truth, which I knew she was preparing to use like a blade. Maybe in court, maybe with our friends, maybe even with our daughter when she was old enough to ask why Dad left. So I did something I'm not proud of. I emailed Hank. From a fake account, of course. I made it look like a fan. Saw you with the brunette at the conference in Chicago. Nice pull, man. Wife and kid never saw it coming. Huh? I knew he'd bite. Men like him always do. He replied in less than an hour. A selfie. Shirtless. In Lorraine's old apartment bathroom. Timestamped from 3 months ago. I saved it. I didn't respond. Then I created a backup drive. Labeled it Marnie's memory box. Inside, I placed every photo, every text, every voice memo Lorraine ever recorded with him. I copied the email from Hank. And I wrote a letter to my daughter. If one day your mom tells you I was cold, or angry, or that I gave up on her, this is the part she'll leave out. The part where she gave herself away piece by piece. And expected me to pretend it was still love. I'm not ready to give her that box yet. But it exists now. Like a quiet time bomb made of truth. And Lorraine? She's unraveling. She thinks I'm the one pulling strings, that I'm the puppet master behind her father's rage and Hank's sudden silence, and her job's brutal exit. She doesn't realize it yet, but I'm not pulling the strings. I'm just watching her tangle herself in them. And when she's finally still, truly still, I'll be ready for the final move. The one that leaves no doubt who she really lost. It was a Thursday morning when the knock came. Not a pounding, angry kind of knock. Not the kind that says, "Let's talk," or "I made a mistake." No, it was polite, calculated, professional. The kind of knock that tells you someone didn't come to apologize. They came with paperwork. Marnie was still asleep. I had just poured myself the kind of motel coffee that tastes like warm cardboard when I opened the door and saw 2 people standing there. The first was Lorraine. No makeup, dark circles, dressed in something halfway between business casual and damage control. Her hair was in a bun, the kind she only wore when she was trying to look like a responsible parent at school meetings. The second was a woman in a gray blazer, high heels, and a face so blank she may as well have been carved from marble. Everett, Lorraine said, forcing a smile like I was the neighbor she bumped into at Target. This is Cassandra. She's just here to help us have a civil discussion. I laughed. I couldn't help it. She brought a family lawyer to a motel. The same woman who used to forget to bring her wallet to dinner had somehow found the time and money to bring a legal representative to the middle of nowhere because she thought I'd cave at the sight of a clipboard. I stepped outside and closed the door behind me so Marnie wouldn't hear. Let me guess, I said. You found a parenting coach on TikTok who told you to act empowered and take control of the narrative. Was that before or after you got fired for cheating in your office parking lot? Lorraine flinched. Cassandra didn't. Her hands were clasped together like she was praying to the gods of custody court. We're just hoping, Cassandra began, to open a dialogue about shared parental responsibilities. Shared? I interrupted. She didn't share anything for the last 8 months. Not her time. Not her body. Not even her dinner plans. And now she wants to share my daughter like a rental? Everett, Lorraine said softly. I'm still Marnie's mother. I stared at her for a long time. You're the woman who missed her daughter's birthday because Hank wanted a second round. Her lawyer raised an eyebrow. Lorraine didn't even deny it. Just looked down at her shoes. They handed me a paper. Something about temporary visitation, supervised parenting time, and emotional distress minimization. I don't remember most of the legal terms, but I remember the feeling in my chest as I read the line about reintegrating the mother into the child's primary environment. She thought she could reintegrate herself like she was an app update. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I pulled the flash drive from my pocket. Here, I said. You'll want to review this before you try court. Cassandra hesitated. What is it? Her second phone, I said. The one synced to our iCloud. Every text. Every photo. Voice memos. Even the one where she recorded Marnie's crying in the background while she laughed and told Hank she wished she could just drop the kid off somewhere and disappear for a week. Lorraine's face drained white. I leaned in, not yelling, just whispering in that same tone she used to use when she wanted to pretend we were okay in front of guests. You want to take me to court? Do it. But remember, judges don't just read paperwork. They listen, and I'll make sure they hear everything. They left without saying goodbye. I stood there on the cracked concrete walkway, heart racing, hands shaking, wondering what kind of mother uses a lawyer like a shield and still thinks she's the hero. Later that night, I opened my email. There was a message waiting. From Lorraine. No subject. Just 5 words. Please don't ruin my life. I stared at it for a long time. Not because I didn't know what to say, but because it was the first time she admitted she knew what she did was ruin-worthy. And that, finally, felt like something close to justice. But I wasn't finished. Because I still hadn't told his wife. I didn't even have to search that hard. It turns out when your wife is cheating with a married man who thinks he's invincible, there's always someone else in the background who already suspects. Someone who's been waiting, just waiting, for confirmation that the sick feeling in her gut wasn't paranoia. Her name was Mallory. And Mallory was the kind of woman who doesn't waste time crying in bathrooms. No, Mallory documents. Mallory archives. Mallory had files. I found her the old-fashioned way. I ran Hank's name through a property records database, matched it to a joint mortgage with a woman who had the same last name and a few baby registry records from years back. Then I looked her up on Facebook. Her profile was locked down tight, but her old posts from 2016 were still public. One of them showed her and Hank at a gender reveal party, all smiles and matching t-shirts. She looked happy then, but not anymore. I messaged her from the same fake email I'd used to bait Hank earlier. I didn't say much. Just this. We should talk. I think we've both been lied to by the same people. I expected anger, accusation, maybe even denial. What I got instead? Where can we meet? She didn't ask who I was. She already knew. We met at a gas station cafe off Highway 17. She wore dark sunglasses and ordered black coffee without sugar. I brought a folder. Not a thick one. Just a few choice screenshots, one hotel receipt, and the recording Lorraine accidentally uploaded to our cloud, where she called Hank the only man who still made her feel alive. Mallory didn't flinch. She just nodded, sipped her coffee, and said, I knew. Not suspected. Knew. She told me things I didn't want to hear. Like how Lorraine wasn't Hank's first. Or even his second. She showed me emails from other women. Messages from burner accounts he thought she'd never find. She had a whole color-coded spreadsheet. I realized then that Lorraine thought she was having a scandalous affair. But she wasn't the main character in his story. She was just another episode. Mallory said something I'll never forget. I didn't leave him the first time because I was scared of starting over. Now I'm scared of staying and becoming her. That hit me like a punch to the ribs. Because I had once loved Lorraine the same way Mallory probably loved Hank. Completely, stupidly, blindly. We made a deal, Mallory and I. Not revenge. Exposure. She had the internal HR contacts at Hank's company. I had the photos of Lorraine using her work email to schedule hotel meetups. We cross-referenced timelines. Matched up locations. Mallory even found a rental car receipt that proved they'd lied about separate conferences in Dallas. They'd been sharing the same hotel suite for 3 nights. But the final nail? Mallory had access to Hank's home office. And inside a locked drawer, she found something even I didn't know existed. A printed-out photo of Lorraine and Marnie. From Instagram. Framed. She sent me a picture of it with a single message. He wanted your life. That's when it clicked. This wasn't just a fling. Hank had been obsessed. With Lorraine. With our family. With the life I built. The dinners. The movie nights. Even the way I read bedtime stories. Lorraine once posted a clip of it on her story, and Mallory said Hank saved it. He wanted it all. And Lorraine? She was too busy feeling adored to notice that she wasn't being loved. She was being collected. We ended our meeting without handshakes. Just a silent understanding. I would take down Lorraine in court. Mallory would take down Hank at home. And we wouldn't stop until the people who shattered us were forced to live among the ruins they created. Back at the Airbnb, I tucked Marnie in and stared at the ceiling for hours. Not thinking. Just listening to the soft hum of the air conditioning and wondering how much more truth was still hiding in the shadows. Turns out, plenty. Because the next morning, I received a call from a blocked number. It wasn't Lorraine. It was Hank. And he sounded scared. Blocked number. 7:08 a.m. I almost didn't answer. Marnie was still asleep, her tiny hand curled around the edge of her blanket like it was a lifeline. I had just poured cereal into a chipped ceramic bowl when the phone buzzed once. Then again. Something in my gut told me this wasn't Lorraine. This wasn't her kind of timing. This was someone panicking. I picked up. I didn't speak first. I let the silence stretch out like a rope. Then, finally, his voice. Everett, listen, man. Please don't hang up. It was Hank. That fake polished voice he used in presentations was gone. He sounded breathless, like he'd run up a flight of stairs. Or maybe like he was finally realizing everything was falling apart. I'm not calling to argue, he said. I need to talk to you. One man to another. I didn't respond. I let the weight of silence sit heavy between us. He sighed. Look, I get it. I do. You're pissed. You should be. But this is getting out of hand. You've involved Mallory, my job's on the line. Lorraine's losing her mind. She says she can't even step outside without someone watching her. I closed my eyes and breathed through my nose. She's afraid now. I finally said. That's new for her. There was a pause. I heard him swallow. I didn't think it would go this far, he mumbled. It was never supposed to be. Look, we didn't mean to hurt anyone. I actually laughed. Out loud. You were going to replace me, I said. You moved into my life without asking. She let you play house in the shadows while I was making pancakes and patching scraped knees. Don't tell me you didn't mean to hurt anyone. He tried to shift the tone, tried to find some moral high ground he thought he still had left. Everett, I know how this looks. Looks, I snapped. You printed out a picture of my daughter and hung it in your house like a trophy. You showed up at her school. Lorraine told the staff you were her uncle. You crossed lines I didn't even think existed. Silence again. Then he said it. A sentence so quiet I almost missed it. She told me Marnie wasn't yours. Time stopped. What? She said you were struggling. That she'd gotten pregnant from a one-time thing. That you knew but agreed to raise her anyway. I froze. Every thought in my brain shut down except for one. She lied about Marnie. I didn't believe her, he said quickly, almost tripping over his words now. Not at first. But she said you couldn't. I hung up. I didn't scream. I didn't throw the phone. I didn't even move. I just stood in that tiny Airbnb kitchen, my heart pounding so loud I couldn't hear the refrigerator anymore. Couldn't hear birds outside. Couldn't hear anything except that one impossible question rattling around in my skull. What if he's telling the truth? I looked at Marnie sleeping on the couch. Her tiny fingers. Her soft curls. The dimple in her cheek that appears only when she's laughing so hard she forgets to breathe. She's mine. She has to be. But Lorraine lied about everything else. She lied about where she went, who she saw, what she felt. Why wouldn't she lie about this? That's when the rage came. Not the kind that explodes. The kind that burns quiet, deep in your spine, like something ancient waking up inside you. I called the lab. Scheduled a test. No names. Just the samples. No chance for interference. No room for more lies. I needed the truth. Not for revenge. For survival. Because if Lorraine took even that from me, if she let me pour my soul into raising a child while knowing she'd handed someone else my place in her DNA, then I wasn't just dealing with a betrayal. I was dealing with a fraud. And when the results came back, I already knew what I feared most. I didn't open the envelope right away. It arrived in a plain white package. No logo, no markings, no drama. Just paper and ink, and the power to change the entire meaning of the last 6 years of my life. I placed it on the counter and stared at it like it might explode. My hands were shaking. My stomach felt hollow. I could hear Marnie in the next room humming while she colored, completely unaware that her father had just signed off on a DNA test behind her back. I hated myself for it, but I hated the doubt more. The seed had been planted the second Hank opened his mouth. The way he'd said it, so casually, like it was a fact he'd been handed during pillow talk. Like Lorraine had weaponized my daughter's existence and used it as an emotional currency in their affair. She told me Marnie wasn't yours. I couldn't stop hearing it. So I did the test. Quietly. Carefully. Swabbed my cheek while Marnie was watching cartoons and dropped the sample off at a clinic an hour outside the city so there'd be no digital trail. I paid cash. Told them I didn't want updates by email. Only physical mail. And now it was here. I stood in the kitchen, heart thumping against my ribs like a warning bell, and finally slid my thumb beneath the seal. The paper inside was clinical. Cold. A series of percentages and cross-matched alleles that meant nothing until I reached the last line. Probability of paternity, 0%. The room didn't spin. The world didn't collapse. Nothing broke or crashed or caught fire. It was quieter than that. The silence felt like drowning. I slid to the floor, back against the cabinet, holding that piece of paper like it was a weapon aimed straight at my soul. I kept reading the number, over and over, as if it might change if I blinked hard enough. But it didn't. 0.00%. A void where certainty used to live. Marnie wasn't mine. Not biologically. Not genetically. Not legally. But in every way that mattered. Every scraped knee. Every bedtime story. Every tiny drawing she'd slipped under my office door. She was mine. And now, because Lorraine couldn't tell the truth, because she let me fall in love with a lie, I was holding the proof that the courts would use to tear my daughter away from me. I didn't cry. I wanted to. But the tears wouldn't come. I felt numb. Like grief had reached such a high frequency that it just became silence. I sat there until the afternoon sun shifted across the window. Until Marnie came in, asked for a snack, and looked at me with the only eyes that had ever made me feel like I was worth anything in this world. And I smiled. Not because I was okay. Because I had already made my decision. Lorraine wasn't going to win. She thought she held all the cards, the bloodlines, the biology, the technicalities. But what she didn't understand was that being a parent isn't about matching DNA. It's about presence. And I had been present every damn day. So I called a lawyer. Not the kind Lorraine brought to my door with fake smiles and softened threats. I found someone better. A woman who specialized in paternal custody rights, especially in cases where the truth came late, but love came early. And I showed her everything. Photos, videos, messages, school records. A calendar that tracked every single day I took Marnie to preschool while Lorraine claimed to be in client meetings with Hank. I gave her a file so thick it needed its own binder. She looked through it carefully, quietly. Then she said, "You're not just going to get custody. You're going to rewrite this whole case." And for the first time in weeks, I felt something other than rage. I felt purpose. Because Lorraine might have lied about Marnie's blood. But I was going to make damn sure she'd never again lie about who her real father is. The courtroom was cold. Not just the temperature, but the air, stale, tense. The kind of atmosphere that makes you second-guess whether you zipped your fly or if your tie is on straight. I sat at the table beside my attorney, palms damp against the smooth legal pad I hadn't written a single thing on. Lorraine walked in late. Of course she did. She was wearing the same outfit she wore to parent-teacher nights, the soft beige cardigan, the too-tight skirt that she once claimed made her feel like a woman again. She didn't look at me, not even once. She just sat down like it was all beneath her, like the whole thing was a nuisance, like we were wasting her time. Across the aisle sat Marnie, holding a stuffed animal and coloring while her guardian ad litem, the court-assigned child rep, whispered something in her ear. She looked up once, locked eyes with me, and smiled. Just a little. That smile alone was worth the past 2 months of legal war. My lawyer stood first. She didn't waste time. No theatrics. No sob stories. Just facts. Evidence. A timeline so detailed it left no room for doubt. Dates. Attendance logs. School pickups. Pediatrician visits. I was there. Every single time. Lorraine was busy, delayed, trapped at the office, or, more often than not, completely absent. Then came the hard part. The paternity test. I had dreaded this moment. Not because of what it said. I already made peace with the truth, but because of what it could be used for. But my lawyer flipped the script. She used it to show how Lorraine had knowingly deceived me. Let me sign the birth certificate. Let me raise a child with no knowledge I wasn't her biological father. Let me bond, build, sacrifice, love. And then, when her affair backfired, she tried to use that same lie as a weapon to strip me away. The judge asked Lorraine's lawyer if she'd like to respond. She did. She stood up and started with one word. Misunderstanding. I nearly laughed. She spun some tale about postpartum confusion, emotional strain, marriage fatigue. Claimed Lorraine always intended to tell me. Said she didn't want to hurt anyone, and loved us both in different ways. But when the judge asked Lorraine directly, "Did you know Hank was likely the biological father from the beginning?" She hesitated. She blinked, swallowed, and then whispered, "Yes." Just like that, the room fell quiet again. The judge leaned forward, folded her hands, and stared at us both. Then, in a calm, deliberate voice, she said, "Custody awarded to Everett." For a second, I didn't believe it. Not because I thought I didn't deserve it, but because I'd spent so long preparing to lose. Lorraine gasped, loud, like someone had just yanked the floor out from under her. Her attorney tried to object, but the judge shut her down before she got more than a syllable out. I turned toward Marnie. She was still drawing, still coloring that same sky she always colors. Bright yellow sun, purple clouds, green grass that looks like spaghetti. She looked up again. I smiled this time. Full. Real. And she ran to me. I knelt down and hugged her like the world was ending and beginning all at once. Because for me it was. That night, we didn't go back to the motel. We went home. Not the house Lorraine and I used to share. I'd sold that. Left the money untouched for Marnie's college fund. No, we went to a little house on a quiet street, 2 towns over. Fresh paint, big windows, a backyard with one of those inflatable pools we could drag out every summer. I'd bought it weeks ago, silently hoping the judge would give me reason to move in. Marnie picked her room, painted it blue, put glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling, named our new dog Pickle, even though I begged her to reconsider. And me? I let go. Of Lorraine. Of Hank. Of the lies. Of the pain. Because at the end of everything, I didn't lose a daughter. I found her. And I found myself too.